Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Now this week I got some surface grinder work. We're going to be using my universal vise, grinding vise on the surface grinder, grinding a custom tool to make a small spline shaft. It's a test piece for me. We'll be making that on the shaper, and I think it's a neat process. And I've got, you know how it works by now. Got some extra stuff too. Got some cutter grinder work where I sharpened some cutters. So let's go up in the shop and get started. Alright, so I have a friend and viewer of the channel that owns a motorcycle shop. He's also a friend of mine on Instagram. He contacted me and he wants to see if I can make this spline section of this shaft. Now apparently this is out of a ATV or motorcycle engine. It's the shifter shaft where you shift the gears, and this part from the factory has been discontinued and you can no longer get them. And the ones that you can get offline, just like this one was bought off eBay I believe and shipped directly to me, they're all in poor condition. I would not want to put this in anything. It's damaged. So he wants to have a few of these on his shelf to sell to customers when they ask. Apparently he gets asked enough to where he's interested in, you know, trying to make this and sell it to his customers. So he wanted to see if I could make this spline section of the shaft here. Originally this was rolled on. It probably took about 2 seconds to make that, but you know, I don't have that kind of tooling, but I do have a shaper that is capable of cutting this spline section. So it's got 31 divisions and what looks to be a 90-degree V on the spline. So I'm going to be grinding the tool to cut this. I'm going to be grinding it on the surface grinder. I'm going to be using my fixture, my universal vise, off of the cutter grinder simply because I can and I want to try it. And we'll grind us up a tool. We'll lathe, you know, this size out, and then we'll put it on the shaper with a rotary table and try to make it. So I think it'll be kind of fun. It's really just an experiment. So let's get started. So this fixture was originally designed for a cutter grinder. It has bolt hold downs, and it also has a keyed foot, so I had to remove, of course, the keys and stuff and the pullover to get it to work good on this mag chuck. But other than that, you know, it's just like anything else. It's cast iron and will hold to the mag chuck. Now you do have to align it with the movement of the table in order for your degree marks to be correct. So I just used the dial indicator on one of the faces, move the table back and forth to get it square with the movement, and then from there you can just use your graduation marks and do it like you would if it was on a cutter grinder. So, you know, a lot of people I think could benefit from one of these, and it takes all the guesswork out of grinding high-speed steel. So let's put a 90 degree on this. We're going to put 2 degrees relief behind the cutting edge, and, you know, 90 degrees on the face. This is a piece of 1/2 inch high-speed steel, a piece of Armstrong. Okay, so I'm going to double check my setup. I want to make sure that I grind 90 degrees on this tool. I'll use this tool probably for a long time, and I want to be able to trust it. Now I lined the marks up on this fixture by eye, you know, 45 degrees, and I've got 2 precision ground angles just out of a real cheap set. But, you know, for this kind of stuff, they're really good. A 30 and a 15. Just use a magnet to stick them together and rest them on the plate or the bottom of the fixture here. Make sure they're set up good, and then indicator off of that or off the spindle, and you know, check it, run it back and forth. Pretty good. Good enough. Plenty good enough. Alright, so I'm working down to a scribed line that I have here on the center of the tool. work this side down. Now I'm going to flip this piece of high-speed steel over and do the other side. So we don't change our 45-degree angle. We want to do the other side, but we do have to change our relief angle because we're going to be grinding on the other side of this tool. Flipping it over, and I'm putting 2 degrees in it. This is going to be a shaper tool, so it doesn't really need much relief, much clearance on the sides. So all we need to change is this right here. And reset, touch off, and grind the other side. So a little check. I think it turned out really good. And it's about as close as you're going to get it, I think. Close as I'm going to get it anyway. And going to put a little top rake on this thing and maybe help it cut a little freer. Just a little bit on the top face there. Because it's going to be moving pretty slow in the shaper, and I think maybe that'll help a little bit. And we'll see. But yeah, so simple setup. Just going to grind the top now. Alright, so we're on the surface plate here. I want to show just how little clearance this really has. You can see the light there. It's on the side of the tool. And this being a shaper tool, they just don't need much clearance. If you put too much in them, you just weaken the tool. You can see our nose clearance there. Just a couple degrees. You know, just enough to clear, and that's all. So you can see that. So I'm going to ground the top and call that good enough. So that little fixture that I use is plenty accurate. Just the graduations on the fixture itself, if you can line those marks up good by eye, will get you right there. At least that's my experience with the one that I have, which is an aftermarket version. You can find them on eBay. So you don't have to have a cutter grinder to do basic lathe or shaper tooling. If you have a surface grinder, you can buy one of those fixtures and you're good to go. Really works just as well. So I'm going to polish this guy up some and then take it over the shaper and get started. Alright, so on the old shaft here, this plate has to be removed, and it is welded to the shaft, so I'm going to have to try to turn that off. Just got a spring clamp here and a spring. So it'll just give me, for one, this part has to be replicated also, and it needs to come off in order to get it sent off to be cut out. And for two, it'll allow me to hold this through my rotary table and allow me to get a more accurate measurement on the splines here when I go to replicate them. So let's see if we can't turn that weld off and separate these two pieces. Just going to use a parting tool for it. I think that'll serve the purpose, at least get us close, and we'll go from there. So now I gotta come at it at a different angle. Alright, so in order for my piece that I'm trying to part off in the lathe to not hit the tool holder and have clearance, I have to put an angle in my parting blade. So I'm just using the fixture again and the cutter grinder. First time I'm using my wheel guard, so let's get this ground in real quick. Shouldn't take but a second, and then get that thing off of there. That's it. Should work. Alright, so that's all the protruding weld bead anyway. Maybe we can, maybe press that off there or knock it off there. Just not for sure. I'll take it off here and see. I'm messing around on a cutter grinder here, sharpening some cutters that was sent into the channel, about 10 in all. They were sent in by Jan Eric, so thank you. I really appreciate it. He sent in some really nice cutters. He mentioned in the email that they all probably need touched up, and they do, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just going through these. I took some footage of it I'll share with you, but most of it you've seen before if you've watched the channel for any amount of time. But I've never done this operation here, at least not on film, and I want to share what I'm doing here with you. I'll explain it more in a minute. But these are some really nice cutters, and you can imagine a cutter of that size made of high-speed steel would be pretty expensive. You could probably buy one of these new for the cost of this whole machine used. So, getting a cutter grinder and learning to sharpen cutters like this, if you have a horizontal mill, is definitely worth it. So, let me show you what I'm doing, and this will be either my first or second time doing it. I can't remember ever doing it before, so learning experience for me, and you maybe. Alright, so a little different setup than I normally do. Got my cutter set up parallel with the movement of the table, and I'm using a cup wheel to sharpen these side edges. You can see every other tooth on each side has a cleaning cutting edge, I guess. They just work the edges of the slot. And this cutter here has some rust damage, and they're pretty dull, really. I don't think they've ever been touched up, and if they have, it's been a long time ago. Now, it is sharp on the outside, so somebody recently touched them up, but they did not do the side. So that's what I'm trying to do. Now, don't go replicating this setup. I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing here is correct. Along with all the stuff that I do. So don't, like I said, don't replicate it without doing your homework. But I think that my setup is good and it will work. So let me get this fired up and we'll grind some and we'll get a good look at it. So I think that went okay, at least for my little experience that I have doing the sides of these. I think it went alright anyway. So to do the other side, I just had to move the finger from one side to the other and move to the other side of the wheel. Yeah, looks pretty good. Let's have a little better look at that. I think for a test run that actually went pretty well. Having some of these older cutters, you know, they're still good, but they're also dull and need sharpening, so they're great for me to practice on. This really turned out better than I expected. I did get into the body of the cutter just a little, but that didn't make any difference. You know, these are not crucial parts of the cutter, so looks pretty good on both sides. So, you know, all I need to do is refine the way I do it a little bit, and you know, I'd call that a success, really. Well, the past month, my son's been, you know, on me to go camping. You know, he doesn't care if it's out in the yard or up on our property. It makes no difference to him, as long as we, you know, get out and sleep on the ground. So this past weekend, we decided to do that. My daughter and wife wisely decided to stay at home. You know, me and my son, you know, like to go up there, tell ghost stories and, you know, that kind of stuff. But we sure paid for it. Not only did I have a sore back from sleeping on a air mattress that loses air, we got eat up by ticks and chiggers. They're the worst I've ever seen. But we had fun and made some memories, and I guess that's what it's all about.
He deserved it. Oh, sorry, I fell another one. There's a tick.
Really?
Yeah, it's a little one.
That's crazy.
You better check it yourself.
I know. You walk up in the woods, you get covered with ticks. What are you cooking?
Some noodles.
Camping food of champions. Ramen noodles. Quick and easy.
My noodles are doing something weird.
What are they doing?
They're raising up.
That's because it's just boiling underneath them, bub. Alright, so a piece of 4140, a piece of 5/8. I'll have to turn this down to 13mm, which is the OD of our splines here. See if I can get you a better shot of this before we get started. I'll have to cut that slot, which I have the tool ground for that. And then at the end of the spline, where the spline stops, I'll have to cut a small radius groove in there somewhere, because I'm using a shaper. It'll be pushing the chip up, and that chip has to have somewhere to break, or else the chip will stay stuck to the part and you'll end up with a, you know, nasty bunch of burrs all the way around. So we'll have to have a break groove, is what I call it. So that's what we're going to do. Let's just get this profile done and go over to the shaper and see if we can get those splines in there. So we're just gonna, you know, get this as close as we can, work up to scribe lines. Again, this is just a test piece, so we're using these little Brown and Sharp 835s, little hermaphrodite calipers. So, you know, it's got a foot there you can rest on the end of the shaft, and then a scribe on the other end. So we'll just set that and blow our part. Like I said, work up to our line. time for the groove there. So it looks good now. I got to put our little groove back here, and that should be it as far as lathe work. So that should give our chip somewhere to break. At least I hope it does. And that's it. Alright, so I got the shaft that I just cut on the lathe and the rotary table here. And I'm getting the tool set up. Just used a square off the table to make sure that it is true. And tightened it down using a big, it's a Williams number 42 tool holder. Just a universal tool holder, which is nice, especially if you cut an angle or anything. But that's it. As far as the setup, I just got to make sure that my stroke is within the range that I want. It's got to stop at a pretty precise little spot right in that little groove that I cut. So that may be, that'll take me a minute to get it set up. But other than that, we're cutting slots. We need 31 divisions, and we're set up for that. So let me get my stroke set up and we'll cut it. Come down to 0. Scratching the blue, I call that 0. And then start there and cut 31 grooves. Oil on it, hopefully maybe help the finish. Alright, so anybody who's ever used a manual rotary table knows it's definitely easy to make mistakes, and right here I just about do the spider that allows me to span a partial rotation on the plate. It's just two little sector arms there, I guess is what you'd call it. Will not allow me to do the partial division of a rotation that I need, so I have to lock it in and lift the plunger and then move the spider, having to drop that plunger in between the actual sector arms, which is a pain. So it's easy to make a mistake, and I thought I did, but luckily I didn't. Mistakes they're definitely easy to make when you're distracted. That's it. Alright, let's get it out of here and see if it fits. I sure hope it does. Really didn't take that long. And I could probably cut each one in just, a couple passes instead of, a couple thousandths at a time feeding down. That would speed this up, immensely. Like I said, it's just a test to see if I can do it. So let me clean this up a little bit. Run a file around it, knock any burrs or anything off of it. We'll get a good look at it, and then we'll test fit it on the shifter shaft, or on the shifter lever that I have. Alright, so there's the original. There's a shifter. It's got some damage on it that, I'm not even going to try to straighten up, but, fits a little loose. Who knows how these are fitted anyway. Look at that. Just a cheap shifter, but ours fits. It's definitely not loose. If anything, it may just be slightly on the tight side, but I would say that's probably a good thing. But it actually turned out better than I was expected. Let me get you closer in on this thing. Check that out. That's one good thing about a shaper, is that you can do stuff like this with it. Yeah, it's what I would expect. So that was a success. Refine that that process a bit, and yes, I can make these. That's it. That slot that's cut in that is for the bolt to go through. The bolt actually slides through that slot. And that way, even if the bolt works loose, and this could fall off, the bolt retains it. So that's pretty neat. Kind of a safety, I guess, so you don't lose your shifter. Alright guys, that's it. That's it for this week anyway. Little shaper action, which I hadn't done in a while, and I actually enjoyed it. That was kind of a tough part to make. Well, it was a tough part to measure, I'll say that. And I didn't show how I done it. It was some guesswork with some not guesswork. But obviously it was good enough to fit as good or better than the original, which I was definitely happy with. Showed some grinding of the sides of a cutter, which, all a bunch of firsts for me. And, making forward progress, and I think it'll work, so that's good enough for me, I guess. I'd like to say a huge thanks to my subscribers, to my patrons. Without you guys, of course, I wouldn't be able to do this, so that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to help the channel out, share the videos with a friend. You're on your Facebook, on your social media. It makes a huge difference, and it's easy to do, so please, hit that share button and, show a friend. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.